Welcome to the Facilitators Deep Dive Podcast, your podcast on your way to facilitation mastery.
All right, so looks like we're going deep on teams today. Not just like the basics, but really getting into what makes them tick.
Yeah, you give us some super interesting sources here.
Yeah, we've got this book all about how to build teams that actually, last, and then some real world stories too. Should be pretty eye-opening, honestly.
Definitely. And you know what always gets me about teams? Like the idea of a team seems pretty simple, right? But man, the way they work in real life.
It's a whole other story.
Totally. Every team's got its own quirks. It's amazing how different they can be. So we'll be looking at this model for, what's it called? Sustainable team development.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And we'll use that to kind of break down some real examples,
Right.
See how things play out in the real world.
I love that. And this book, right off the bat, they have this really specific definition of what a team even is.
Oh, yeah. It's not just a bunch of people hanging out.
Definitely not.
So they say a real team, it's a fixed group, like 5 to 9 people, ideally, all working towards the same goal.
Right.
And everyone's got to be on board with that goal.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and they need the skills, obviously, the power to make decisions. But here's the kicker. They also got to be constantly looking at how they work together.
Yeah.
I mean, and be ready to change things up.
It can't be just set it and forget it.
No way.
Huh. Makes you think about all those teams that just get stuck doing things the same old way,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the book, it has this great analogy about a bricklayer apprentice. They call it the Moorer Lurling. So imagine this apprentice. All they're doing is laying brick after brick.
Never looking up.
Exactly. No idea what they're building. They feel like just a cog in a machine.
Missing the big picture.
Right. But they're actually, helping to build this incredible cathedral.
Wow. So it's not just about doing the work. It's about understanding how your little piece fits into the whole thing.
100%. And I think that's where motivation comes in, when you get why you're doing something.
It's way more engaging.
Totally. You're more invested. And that actually brings us to this this model the book talks about for sustainable team development. They call them the 5 pillars.
Ooh, 5 pillars. Okay. Lay 'em on me.
All right. So pillar number 1, psychological safety. Basically, making sure everyone feels safe to take risks, throw out ideas, even admit when they mess up.
Without being judged.
Exactly. It's all about open communication, collaboration.
Yeah. Especially these days, I feel like people are so afraid to speak up,
For sure. Nobody wants to look bad.
Right.
Okay. Pillar number 2, knowledge. It's not just about having the skills and expertise.
Well,
It's
yeah.
about sharing that knowledge, making sure everyone has access to it.
Oh, have I ever been in situations where someone was hoarding information?
The worst.
It's like pulling teeth. So yeah, knowledge sharing, huge, but then you got to actually learn from all that experience, right?
Absolutely. Pillar number 3,
Okay.
experience, learning by doing.
Hmm.
And that includes the screw-ups, the failures.
Yeah, I got to learn from those mistakes.
Big time. Reflect, adapt, get better. So important.
Which kind of makes me think about feedback too. A culture where it's okay to, admit you messed up.
100%. And that ties into our next pillar,
All right, what's number 4?
attitude. This one's all about the team's mindset, how they approach the work. Are they willing to collaborate, to learn, to constantly improve?
It's that growth mindset.
Yes.
Yes.
Even when things get tough. So are they open to seeing challenges as learning opportunities? That kind of thing.
Okay, so that's 4 pillars. What's the glue that holds it all together?
That would be pillar number 5, values. The shared principles, the things the team believes in, that guide how they work and how they interact.
It's like their guiding principles.
Exactly. And it creates a sense of unity, purpose.
I'm seeing how all these pillars really connect. It's like you can't have one without the others.
You're right. If a team has that strong sense of psychological safety, they're more likely to share knowledge freely, learn from their experiences, and keep a positive attitude.
Yeah.
And those shared values just reinforce all of that.
They're like the compass, right?
Perfect analogy, guiding the team's decisions and actions.
Okay, so this model, it's super interesting, but it still feels kind of, I don't know, abstract. How do we make it like real, like something people can actually apply to their own teams? That's where these team personas you mentioned come in, right?
Bingo. That's where the book gets really fun. They introduce these team personas not as like strict categories, but more like illustrations to show how those 5 pillars can play out in different ways. Think of them like character sketches for teams.
Oh, I like that.
Each persona has its own story, its own challenges and strengths.
So it's a way to see these principles in action in like the messy reality of real teams. I'm definitely ready to hear about some of these personas. Where do we start?
Let's start with the cargo cult. These are the teams that just, they see other successful teams doing something and they copy it blindly.
Without understanding the why behind it.
Exactly. No deeper understanding of the principles. They're just going through the motions, like those islanders who built those fake airstrips during the war.
Oh, yeah. Hoping to attract planes full of cargo. They had the look, but not the substance.
Right. And it raises a big question. Can you really build a great team by just imitating others? Or do you have to find your own way?
That's a good question. What other personalities are out there?
Well, let's talk about the fundamentalists. These guys are all about the rules. They stick to them rigidly, even when it starts to, hurt their progress.
Oh, I've been on those teams, so focused on the process that they forget the point.
It's like playing a game and someone's just obsessed with the rule book, even if it makes the game less fun for everyone. Yeah. And there's this great story in the book about a scrum master who reminds a team, even established frameworks, so, they need to be adapted to fit the team and the situation.
Right, you can't just follow the rules blindly.
Nope. It's just as bad as having no rules at all.
Flexibility is key. What other personas stick out to you?
Well, there's the Happy Path team. They do great when everything's going smoothly, but the minute there's a problem,
They'd fall apart.
exactly, they have zero resilience.
They're like a house of cards. It looks impressive until the wind blows.
Perfect way to put it. And it really highlights, how important it is to build that resilience into your team.
Yeah.
So they can handle the rough patches.
It's like they can't handle the heat.
Right. And, it's inevitable you're going to run into problems in any project.
Yes, so you got to be ready.
Okay. So we've got those Happy Path folks who crumble under pressure. Any other team personalities we should watch out for? Lay it on me.
All right, well, there's these guys, the Murmeltier. That's German for groundhogs, by the way.
Groundhogs. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And these teams, they're stuck in a rut, just going through the motions, no real drive to change or get better.
Oh, I know the type. It's like they're living the same day over and over, like Bill Murray in Groundhog Day.
Exactly. It's like they're on autopilot. So the question is, how do you break them out of that cycle?
Right, how do you shake things up?
It's tricky. Sometimes it takes a real push from a leader, someone with a strong vision, to get them motivated again.
Yeah, it makes you think about the importance of leadership, not just to set the goals, but to create a culture where people, want to grow and innovate.
Absolutely. The leader sets the tone for the whole team. Okay, ready for our last persona?
Hit me.
All right, this one's called the A-team. Now, these teams, they're full of super talented people. Like, each individual's amazing.
Okay, but.
The but is, they're terrible at working together.
Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Kind of.
Yeah.
They've got all the skills, all the knowledge, but they don't share it. They don't communicate well.
So like a basketball team full of all-stars, but they all just want to score their own points.
You got it. They end up hurting the team because they can't or won't work together.
Makes sense. This one really shows how bad it can be when people hoard information, those knowledge silos you were talking about.
Yeah, having expertise is great, but only if you actually share it and use it to help the whole team.
Okay, so we've got this framework for understanding how teams develop, and these personas really help bring it all to life.
Right, they make it more concrete.
Totally. But I'm still thinking, how do we actually put this into practice? That's where a good case study comes in, right? See how this stuff plays out in a real team.
You read my mind. And lucky for us, the book has a great one. It's about these two team coaches, Martin and Nadine.
And the team they're working with.
It's called the Honeybees.
The Honeybees. I love it. Let's hear it.
All right, so the Honeybees, they're having some trouble with communication, especially giving each other feedback.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah, they're avoiding conflict, which we know isn't good in the long run.
Sounds kind of like that Happy Path team, scared to rock the boat.
Yeah, there are definitely some similarities. So Martin, he's the less experienced coach, and he's struggling to help them, break through this communication barrier.
Makes sense.
He tries bringing in all these new methods and tools, hoping for a quick fix.
But it's not working.
Nope. Because he's missing something crucial, he doesn't really get where the team's at in their development.
So it's not about finding the right tool. It's about finding the right tool for this specific team at this specific time.
Exactly. Like you wouldn't try to teach a baby how to do algebra. Right?
Yeah, they're not ready for that.
So thankfully, Martin has Nadine. She's the more experienced coach, and she helps him see this.
She's the mentor.
Exactly. She's like, look, you got to understand where they're at. Choose the right tools for the job. And this is such a good lesson for all of us, right? Patience is key when you're trying to help a team grow.
Totally. So what happens next?
Well, the Honeybees, they start to make progress. They're evolving. And Martin starts to realize something important.
What's that?
He needs to step back, let the team take ownership of their own development.
It's not about fixing them, it's about guiding them.
Right. He's there to support them, not control them. And that can be hard for some leaders, letting go of that control.
Especially if they're used to, calling all the shots.
For sure. But when Martin does this, something amazing happens.
What is it?
The honeybees, they really blossom. They start opening up, giving each other feedback. They even learn how to handle conflict in a healthy way.
Wow, that's impressive. It shows that even teams with deep-rooted problems, they can change.
Absolutely. It reminds us that there's no one-size-fits-all solution, right?
Every team is different.
Exactly. You got to adapt your leadership style, your approach to the team you're working with.
It's like we're all gardeners tending to different plants. Some need more sun, some need more water.
Love that analogy. It's all about understanding the needs of each individual team and helping them grow.
So as we wrap up our deep dive here, what are the big takeaways you want our listener to remember?
Well, for me, the biggest thing is you can't just throw a bunch of talented people together and expect a high-performing team.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. It's got to be more than that.
It's about building the right environment, one where people trust each other, where they can speak openly, and where everyone's always looking to improve.
So those 5 pillars we talked about, the psychological safety, the knowledge sharing, all of that, that's the foundation for a really great team.
Exactly. And like we saw with the honeybees, it's not like there's a checklist you can just follow, you know?
Yeah, it's not that simple.
Every team's different. There are different stages, they have different needs. So your leadership style, your approach, it has to adapt.
It's like, we're all gardeners, but we've got all these different plants to take care of.
Ooh, I like that.
Some need more sun, some need more water,
It's about figuring out what each team needs to thrive.
Okay, so as we wrap up here, I know you always like to leave our listener with something to think about. What's been on your mind as we've been talking about all this?
Well, we've talked a lot about how to tell if a team is, mature, like where they're at in their development,
Right.
using those 5 pillars as a guide.
Right.
But what about the leader?
Oh, interesting.
How do we, the leaders, make sure we're growing too?
That's a good question. It's like we're focused on helping the team get better, but we got to keep learning and developing ourselves.
Absolutely. Because just like there are different types of teams, there are different types of leaders. Yeah.
Totally. And each one probably has their own strengths, weaknesses, blind spots.
Exactly. So as you're going through all these resources you've gathered, think about that. What kind of leader are you? And what can you do to keep getting better, to be the best guide for your team?
That's a great takeaway. This has been a super insightful deep dive, and I hope everyone listening feels like they can take these ideas and actually use them to build better teams.
Me too. It's all about creating those teams that really excel,
Those honeybees, they showed us it's possible.
Even when there are challenges, you can overcome them.
Oh, well, that's a wrap for this deep dive. Thanks to everyone for listening, and good luck out there leading your teams.
See you next time on the Facilitators Deep Dive Podcast, your podcast on your way to facilitation mastery. Until next time.
See you then.